It's the Week 3 preview show, the 2025 college football season. I'm Carson Fox, and thanks for tuning in for another edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports. We have the 108th edition of the Backyard Brawl, featuring our most hated rival, the Pitt Panthers, who come into this contest 2-0, at our beloved West Virginia Mountaineers, who are 1-1. A 3:30 p.m. kickoff from Milan Puskar Stadium in Morgantown, West Virginia. If you're not able to attend this game in person, you can watch it on ESPN. If you care what happens in Vegas, the ESPN betting odds have this now as a 5.5-point spread in favor of Pitt. Yes, the road team, the Pitt Panthers, opened as a 2-point favorite. Then the spread got up to about 5.5 toward the middle of this week, and now it is 7.5 with an over-under set at 56.5 points. The ESPN matchup predictor gives West Virginia a 41% chance at winning this game. And as I like to do with all of my preview shows, give you the matchup history. I'll give you what this means and what's on the line for both teams. We're going to talk about injuries, weather, what to watch for when the Panthers have the ball, what to watch for when the Mountaineers have the ball. 3 keys to victory and a prediction I'll get you out on. So hopefully under an hour. I got a lot of notes for this one. Kind of drawing a lot on last year's game, but with what's happened so far this season. So if you like this video, and you please like it so more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube. I'd love for this to be perhaps my most viewed pregame show of the entire season if it gets to that. So, and if you like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll try and bring you as best content as I can on West Virginia football, basketball, baseball, and all the news that's in between. So we have a lot to get to today, so let's not waste any more time talking about the matchup history. Pitt owns the overall series, one of the longest running college football rivalries in the country. Pitt owns this advantage 63-41-3. Now, through 1895, when the series began, through the Korean War, the Western University of Pennsylvania, yes, that's what the University of Pittsburgh was once called, held a dominating 34-9-1 series advantage in this. So it was all way over 100 years ago in which Pitt established such a dominating advantage. But then once Sam Huff came to Morgantown in 1952 and West Virginia got serious about football as a school, it won 13 of the next 28 matchups, which coincided with Pitt's national championship in 1976. Now, after Don Nehlen got to Morgantown in 1980, the series started to shift West Virginia's way. West Virginia went 18-12-2 from 1980 till when the brawl paused after 2011 because Pitt and Syracuse destroyed the old Big East for the ACC, and we had no game until 2022. Now, Pitt has gone 2-1 since the series was returned 3 years ago, and this will be the last game until the two teams meet again in the year 2029 because Pitt would rather play Ole Miss next year, contrary to what Pitt head coach Pat Narduzzi said earlier this week. I don't know what happened with Pitt's new athletic director, Alan Green, but I believe him when WVU athletic director Ren Baker said all that he said over this summer about trying to get Pitt on this football schedule in perpetuity, and for whatever reason, Pitt doesn't want to play West Virginia. So it's unfortunate, but it's the way that they went for it, wanting to have Ole Miss on their schedule. West Virginia in this series at home since Milan Puskar Stadium opened in 1980 has gone 9-6-2 against the Panthers, but has won 5 of the last 7 dating back to the beginning of the century. So got to go back to Rich Rodriguez's first season in 2001, and then of course the game that we don't speak of on December 1st of 2007. So what's on the line for both teams? Just a few things for Pitt. After crushing FCS opponent Duquesne and MAC foe Central Michigan by multiple scores at home the last 2 weeks, this is when Pitt's schedule really starts to get real. And with highly ranked opponents, Florida State on the road, and Notre Dame and Miami both at home, with Louisville and Georgia Tech being no slouches either, Pitt wants this game to pad its resume. But beyond that, they want this rivalry for continued bragging rights. Talking to one of my Pitt fan friends over this summer when, kind of we were debating, or I don't even know if we want to call it a debate, but making the remark that Pat Narduzzi is right around top, if he's either inside the top 25 or just right there on the cusp of one of the highest paid coaches in college football. Yet Pitt only has that 2021 ACC Conference Championship and have, perpetually been just around 500, some better seasons than that and some lesser. So I just thought to myself, like, is this the year for Pitt, with all that they have coming back from last year, a team that started out 7-0, and he's like, no, Pitt's an 8-win program. Like, that's their ceiling. So, I mean, it's not to say that they can't beat those teams that I mentioned, but if they're only going to go 8-4, they want this win. That means a whole heck of a lot more than Louisville and Georgia Tech to them, if that's the only two teams that they can beat out of the 6 that I just mentioned, or 5. They want this game. They won't say it out and outright that it's their Super Bowl, but they want this win, for sure. And for West Virginia, let's talk specifically about WVU's head coach, Rich Rodriguez. This game is first and foremost personal. I can't believe the date of this game, September 13th, 9/13 of all dates out of the 365 days a year, to win after what happened in 2007. Now, for fans, I think, yes, went to that game, understand the historical relevance in it, but that's 17 years ago in the past. I'm more pissed off about what happened with West Virginia and Pitt in 2022 and last year, 2024, at Acrisure Stadium. We want the same bragging rights that they do, and to make up for those 2 implosions in 2022 that we don't really need to track through the history, the details of that game. But for this 2025 team, this, I feel like, is I tweeted earlier this week, I think this is a watershed moment for this. I can't believe I'm freaking saying this in mid-September, but this is really a watershed moment for this season after losing to Ohio last week and the way it performed. And I don't want to be too fatalist, because I'm now 32-year-old mature adult, or I'd like to at least think I'm a little bit mature. So to say, oh my goodness, the sky is falling, the end is near, heavens me, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, I kind of knew it, though, in 2021 that losing to Maryland, that made a big difference. We saw a pretty mediocre 21 season. 22, they don't make a bowl. 23, you overachieve with playing a pretty easy schedule. Don't beat anybody ranked. And then 24, completely implode. But when I looked at this schedule all summer, this game is the first fork in the road as to where I feel like this season will go. With a win in this game, I still think at Kansas next week is a 50-50 contest. That's a better Kansas team than really what I thought, given the way they performed last week against Missouri and will be coming off a bye. Utah at home in 2 weeks. Utah, I think, is top 25 now. I think they're a good team. I predicted that to be West Virginia's first loss of the season when I did my prediction show, a few weeks ago. And then at BYU, the first weekend of October on a Friday night at 4,700 feet elevation in the sky, in front of 68,000 wild, completely sober but high off cookies and lemonade Mormons. So I fear for a 1-5 West Virginia heading into that bye October 12th with 41 guys who are in the last year of eligibility. Now, if that's the case, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And we may talk about some more radical ideas as to what to do at that point in time if that becomes the situation. But I'd like to see West Virginia play meaningful football this fall. And I'm sure you are if you're tuning in to listen to me. But losses, as we saw in 2022 and 2024, the seasons went off the rails. Neil Brown should have been fired after 2022, but better late than never, he got the pink slip after 2024, and you can chalk up the brawl losses in both of those seasons, as to the demerits that added up to his firing. That's not to say that all, 3 games in, I'm calling for Rich Rodriguez to be fired. Not at all. Absolutely not. I said a few weeks ago, win them one game or win them all, like he's going to be back for next season. I just think it could be precipitously harder for this West Virginia program to recruit the kind of talent this program needs to compete in the year of our Lord 2025. And say what you want about the Big 12 Conference, and if you notice what's going on with the SEC and the middle to upper tier of the Big 10, you'll probably notice that the Big 12 just ain't that good, y'all. But West Virginia has still never won this league since entering in 2012. Now, it's still harder, I feel like, than the last rendition of the Big East when UConn was last winning the league in 2010. But you're going to have to do this somewhat of a degree. I know that Rich Rodriguez has said that he wants to dedicate more toward recruiting high school talent and building a program in a more traditional way. But I'm sorry, I've already started putting together the roster outlook with eligibility for next season, including all of the fall 26 commits already. And it's like, you got to start adding some quality starters to this program to gel with some of the underclassmen who will get some valuable experience being in a Rich Rodriguez program for a full calendar year. But how are you going to attract those kind of starters that you need when you're trying to sell the same kind of thing that you sold a year ago and your program went whatever it goes? Win against Pitt, and that changes, I feel like, the prospects of moving forward into conference play. Lose, and I'm fearful for where it takes West Virginia in totality of 2025. With Jaheim White injured. Well, all right, let's transition. We'll talk about the injuries and come back to the weather in a second. So for West Virginia, the injuries have already started to pile up. Running back Jaheim White done for the year with what I'm assuming is going to be a knee injury. Don't know the full extent of his injuries after that brutal, ugly, illegal tackle that he suffered to Ohio last week. And then Jaden Bray, done for the year, also re-injuring the same foot that cost him most of 2024. I wonder what's going to happen for him for a potentially 2026 season. Linebacker Reed Carrico, I guess, can best be categorized as day-to-day at this point, so I don't know whether they call that questionable or probable, but it sounds like both Cannon Katzer or Dior Hubbard at running back are both questionable. Didn't know that until last week that's the reason why Dior Hubbard's been hurt. I knew about Cannon Katzer, but didn't know so much about Dior Hubbard. And for Pitt on the other side of the ball, the biggest two noteworthy injuries are both of their top two cornerbacks, in Rashad Battle and Taman Lynham. Both will be out already for this contest. Tight end Jake Overman's questionable, and then guys who are kind of in the second to third strings linebackers, Jeremiah Marcelin, Jaden Bonsu, and running back Derek Davis all won't be playing in this contest. Weather's not going to play a factor in this game, other than, man, if you can deal with the heat and the temperature because it's an 85-degree sunny, beautiful, this is what I'm talking about kind of game. No, I'm not that kind of person who likes the cold. Don't give me snow, absolutely not. 85 and sunny, beautiful. I roasted last year at Acrisure Stadium, sitting in the one section that had complete sun for 4 quarters. Would have loved to have the shade side. So this one, I'm gonna know to hydrate myself up in the parking lots and then in the stadium for this one. So let's get into actually the meat of the game, what to watch for when Pitt has the ball. Talking about the Pitt offense versus the West Virginia defense at this point in time. Pitt now averaging, through 2 contests, 53 points per game, 462 yards per game. 2 terrible opponents, Duquesne and Central Michigan, but still that's impressive. You're putting up numbers the way you're supposed to. On the defensive side of the ball for West Virginia, averaging just 10 points per game allowed, 276 yards per game allowed. Talking about this Pitt offense, it begins and ends to me with maybe the second best quarterback that Pitt has had since Rod Rutherford in the early 2000s. Maybe that year of Bill Stoll, and definitely I would put Kenny Pickett's 2021 year, but Eli Holstein is legit. He's the real deal. Number 10, redshirt sophomore at quarterback, averaging 260 passing yards and 39 rushing yards per game with a 71% completion percentage through 2 games, 8 touchdowns, but does have 2 picks early on the season. And we remember how he performed last year in that game on September 14th. In a victory for the Panthers, 301 passing yards with 3 touchdowns and 59 rush yards. Now at tailback, an all-purpose kind of All-American by some outlets. Number 0, senior running back Des Reed, who was a transfer last year. Last year against West Virginia, though, he was pretty much held in check rushing the ball. Had 11 carries for just 26 yards, but was really deadly receiving it. 4 catches for 50 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the year, he's pretty balanced, doing a little bit of both. 18 carries for 112 yards and a touchdown rushing, and 6 catches for 71 yards, tied for the team lead with those 6 receptions. Now, Pitt's wide receiving core, I feel like, has gotten better. I think this is probably their best receiving core in totality since that 21 team that won the ACC. And the guy who I was really impressed with last season, number 2 junior, then sophomore, wide receiver Kenny Johnson at 6'1", 205 pounds. 6 catches for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns on the season so far. Last year against the Mountaineers, 5 catches for a team-high 79 yards, including a beautiful 42-yarder on a pass from Holstein. The other 2 wide receivers to keep an eye on in this contest, number 5, redshirt senior Raphael, a.k.a. Poppy Williams, kind of a slot receiver at 5'10", 165, has a team-high 126 yards receiving on 6 catches and 2 touchdowns. Also, I'm keeping an eye on number 3, redshirt sophomore wide receiver, excuse my pronunciation here, Kataris, a.k.a. Blue Hicks, about the same size as Williams. He's a transfer from Louisville. 5 catches for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns on the season so far. Who, with Overman being questionable to potentially out in this contest, look for the 2 tight ends Pitt uses in this game, Josh Altsman and Justin Holmes, replacing the really annoying Gavin Bartholomew. Both of those guys have touchdowns on the season so far. So what I'm watching for, the game within the game to me, is what kind of design blitzes does the West Virginia defensive coordinator Zach Alley throw at Holstein. Now, I think Parker Navarro from Ohio's game his overall game is just like Holstein's. If you rush at him, he's going to step up in the pocket and make plays with his legs like we saw last year. And West Virginia, being at this game, did a dreadful job of getting Holstein to the ground. They would get hands on him. There would be some arm tackles, flailing, T.J. Jackson, a ton of this, Fatorma Mulba. They would get to Holstein. They just couldn't get him to the ground. Bigger guy, like 6'3", 6'4", over 200 pounds, you got to get him to the ground. Now, I think Navarro's probably a bit faster than Holstein. Perhaps equating now then for West Virginia's linebackers better opportunities to go one-on-one, mano-a-mano, and they can get him to the ground if he decides to take off, step up in the pocket, and leave. Or I think what I'm really curious to see is how much is a spy being used. Again, different kinds of blitzes, maybe rush the line, drop back the linebackers. If they get an initial rush at him and he steps up, then the linebackers are right there to come after him. But if you use a spy, it's a little bit of a susceptible in the short to intermediary game for those checkdowns. And Holstein loves to do that, as obvious by what he did last year with Des Reed in throwing it short. And, Kanata Mumfield, who thankfully has graduated, was one of those possession receivers that he just, chunked, nickeled, and dimed West Virginia all game long. Now, I've read everything, y'all. I've read The Smoking Musket. I've read Dominion Post. I've read my friends over at West Virginia Sports Illustrated. I heard Rich Rodriguez in his press conference saying there's still, T's that needs crossed, I's that need dotted regarding Bandit defensive end Jim Ori Robinson. So do we see him? I think nobody knows at this point, other than he did practice early in the week. Zach Alley did say that at one of his media scrums after practice. Excuse me. And Robinson himself, I had to look this up because it was in Arabic, saying, if God wills it, tweeted earlier this week with a hands up emoji. So does that mean that he's riding in like Gandalf to the Battle of Helm's Deep and here to save the Mountaineers? I would hope so. I hope that we get, somewhat of a sack fest like I saw back in 2011 when Bruce Irvin and Julian Miller combined for 10 sacks on Tino Sinceri and West Virginia won 21-20. So also I'm watching, can the crowd like the Virginia Tech game in 2021 that I was at. It was a great crowd and a day game. Will the raucous crowd be enough to scare Holstein into turnovers like Vildrakovic did ad nauseum in 2023? The game within the game will be how WVU's defense plays when Holstein improvises. That's it. That's right there in a nutshell. And I think Allie may take a different approach by, again, letting those defensive linemen, especially he's got Jamori Robinson, and they can create pressure. Maybe we see a four-man front finally. While the linebackers do that delay blitzes and Holstein tries to step up in the pocket to run. So also, number 2, what I'm watching for, no fly zone in the secondary on deep shots. This freaking killed West Virginia in this game a year ago. I mean, what first comes to mind just makes me absolutely ill, and this is when I knew that the game was over at this point. The 40-yard touchdown pass to Dejon Reynolds on 2nd and 30 with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter from 40 yards out. Like, oh my gosh, triple covered, and he's still able to catch that ball right in freaking front of me. I was so sick after that play. Ugh. So beyond the one series in the second quarter before halftime last week against Ohio, I feel like West Virginia's done a really good job in shutting down deep shots. Michael Coates, Jason Chambers, so far have been upgrades despite the competition over Garnet Hollis Jr. and Dantes Fagan. And this defense, as we quickly forget, had 3 picks last week on Parker Navarro. So can West Virginia do it again? That is the internal goal of defensive coordinator Zach Alley and these guys, is they want to create 3 turnovers a game for West Virginia's offense. And number 3, West Virginia's crowd has to be a factor for 4 quarters for this defense to relentlessly feed off the energy and perhaps cause pre-snap mistakes or breakdowns in communication. And I think West Virginia really has an opportunity against Pitt's offensive line. They were not good in this contest a year ago. They're all a year older, but I think West Virginia's defensive line can go against Pitt's offensive line. I expect them to really limit Des Reed's game once again in the rush game. You can't let Holstein, beat you, kill you with his arm, pass for 300 again, and let Des Reed go off. You got to hold Reed in check. So we'll see how that necessarily goes. And this is the largest crowd. I looked this up. This is the largest crowd yet that Holstein will face as a college quarterback. I know. Yeah, into his 3rd year. Looked up Pitt's 2 biggest road games because he missed part of the season last year due to injury. SMU, smaller crowd. Kenan Stadium against North Carolina, under 50,000. So if this is 60,000 screaming Mountaineer fans, keep the pressure on him, use your voice for all game long, then I think that will make somewhat of a difference. I don't know. Make it a tough place to play. If Mountaineer fans think that Mountaineer Field is a top 25 toughest place to play in college football, prove it. Prove it on this day. So let's transition and talk about when West Virginia has the ball, what to watch for. The West Virginia offense averaging 28 points per game, 437 yards per game. That's a little bit of a loaded statistic given they only scored 10 points on 205 yards of total offense last week against Ohio. The Pitt defense, stout. Through 13 points per game allowed, 209 yards per game allowed. We know what this defense is. It's a 4-3 relentless pressure, send 7 to 8 dudes in the box and come at you for all game long, and they're going to dare you to throw over the top in press man coverage on the outside with their long, lanky corners. Why West Virginia, I feel like, was so successful against Pitt in 2022. Graham Harrell called a lot of deep shots with JT Daniels in just his first game in Morgantown. Maybe a few too many of those deep shots for my liking. But, hey, West Virginia converted in that game, and we all know how that game ended, but it was exactly how to beat this Pitt team, using the pass to then open up the run. And C.J. Donaldson was a Panther killer for 3 seasons. Despite 2 losses, he always played well against Pitt. So, who's the guys that you need to watch for from Pitt and how West Virginia attacks them? It comes down to their 2 outside linebackers. Both juniors, number 9, Kyle Lewis, playing the star position, and the number 3, Rasheem Biles, playing the money linebacker. Now, both All-American preseason and All-ACC selection, respectively, who have had a combined 25 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and 2 passes deflected in this contest a year ago. We remember Lewis was the guy who had the final pick on the final drive of Garrett Green, but there wasn't really enough time to realistically score anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But West Virginia should have picked up a first down when they had the lead before punting it back to Pitt, and that's when Holstein went on his game-winning drive and beat the Mountaineers last year. So I digress. Both guys already off to an incredibly hot start. 26 tackles combined, 5 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups, 3 QB hurries, and a fumble recovery. The other guy to watch for in the back end, number 7, redshirt senior, free safety, Javon McIntyre. He's been a 3-year starter at Pitt. He's being asked to take on more of a leadership role, I feel like, this season in the secondary with multi-year starter Donovan McMillan, now graduated. Through 2 games, he's tied for second on the team with 11 tackles. And despite losing one of the best defensive line coaches in college football before the start of last season, Charlie Partridge, Pitt still stout up front. And though it was just Duquesne and Central Michigan, Pitt's impressively giving up fewer than a yard per carry. Yes, you heard that right. Less than a yard per carry for 35 yards rushing per game through 2 games. So number 1, what I'm watching for, is there a change at quarterback? West Virginia struggled to run the ball last week. That's stating the obvious. And I think it was pretty much due to a pretty poor push up front by the West Virginia line. And now Jaheim White, West Virginia's best offensive weapon, is done for the season. Jalen Henderson may be a step faster and a bit more agile than Nico Marchiol, as I talked about at the recap video of the Ohio game. So with White out and WVU looking for both a little bit more speed at the quarterback and tailback position, does head coach Rich Rodriguez go with Jalen Henderson or the guy who beat Pitt at home in 2023 and Nico Marchiol? I kind of think, if you had a feeling and said, Carson, you got to pick, what do you think? I think Henderson is, because of the factors that I mentioned, going to get the start. But we'll see. Could be wrong. Number 2, does Rich Rodriguez try to win this game his way with running the ball into a frickin' brick wall, as I've mentioned already? Or has he learned his lessons from 2007 that when you're facing a cover 0 defense with 9 dudes in the box, West Virginia will need to throw this way out of this one? I know I already mentioned McIntyre. He's a good player in the back end for Pitt. But I really think Pitt is susceptible if West Virginia's pass catchers can get off Pitt's corners and create some separation. I'm looking at you, Cam Vaughn. Jeff Weimer going to have to step up. Preston Fox, I know you're small, not really necessarily an outside receiver. But Grayson Barnes at tight end. I really would have liked to see West Virginia have Jaden Bray for this one. That is so freaking unfortunate that he's hurt. Obviously, the West Virginia offensive line has to give who's ever's throwing the ball, Henderson or Nico Marchiol. And they got to do a lot better of a job than they did last week against Ohio. But with Lyman and Battle, as I previously mentioned, both out in this contest, your Pitt's down its top 2 corners. So I think you have to throw the ball. Have to. This cannot just be 3 yards in a cloud of dust and try to win like Iowa did against Iowa State last week. I just think Pitt has too good of an offense for this defense to do what it did against Ohio last week, forcing 3 turnovers, all of that, and you put up 205 yards of total offense and have so many 3-and-outs with getting killed in time of possession. Can't do that. So number 3, has there been anything that Coach Rodriguez has been holding back over the first 2 weeks from a play calling standpoint that we have yet to see that will make a difference? Now, I gave Neil Brown credit. This was before I started my channel years ago. In 2019, when he realized by week 3, so we're in week 3 now, at home against NC State after getting embarrassed on the road the week prior, a 38-7 loss at Missouri, probably a game you've completely forgot about, because West Virginia's offensive line could not get a push up front, just like this offensive line is struggling to do. He got creative. He used Sam James in the tunnel screen game. He did a lot of running horizontally. So what does Coach Rodriguez do? Does he take the similar kind of approach? I just see West Virginia's offensive line and this run game being overwhelmed by Pitt's linebacking core if West Virginia just tries to do what it did last week against Ohio. I was wrong. You can't just run your offense with this offensive line, and if you really think Clay Ash can be your starting running back, can't do that. So I've seen some trickeration. I've seen some beautiful play designs, like you see reels on Facebook and stuff. Texas is awesome. Even Wisconsin sometimes. Like, get the ball to players in space in creative ways. If you can't just go spread read option, traditional kind of play, like Rodriguez would want to, like we're very accustomed to with seeing from Pat White and Steve Slayton. So, third phase of the game, special teams. This is where it gets pretty interesting. I think it's pretty even. West Virginia's kicking, Cade Hensley, 2 for 2 on the season, 7 for 7 from extra points. Did have a 38-yard field goal last week against Ohio. Pitt kicking, they're replacing Ben Sauls, who's on the practice squad now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Excellent lefty kicker. Really was impressed by Ben Sauls' kicking over the last few years. They're going with a true freshman, Trey Butkowski. He's 3 for 3 on the season with a long of 43. Has missed an extra point, though. 13 of 14. We'll see if he has to kick in any big situation and the crowds get raucous. Can they get to him? West Virginia punting. Remember, West Virginia had a punt blocked in this game last year. Completely changed the whole complexion of the game. It was after the really awful call by Michael Vandervelde on a hold on Wyatt Milam. That West Virginia had a beautiful play action touchdown deep pass to Hudson Clement in the third quarter. Next play, instead, you have to punt the ball. West Virginia gets the ball blocked, return for a touchdown. 14-point swing there. 14 points. So the punting game, Pitt's going to try and do something. They're going to be aggressive any way they possibly can in any phase of this game. So Ollie Straw, we're watching you, man. You have 11 punts on the year. Did a really good job last week. Had his longest punt of the year, 55. Now up to a 40-yard average, right around where he's been for his career. A few yards more. Watch for Ollie Straw. Pitt has a good one also. Caleb Junko, redshirt senior, 5 punts on the year, a 46-yard average with a long of 53. So if we see field position of the battle, 2 good punters going in this one. But West Virginia's got the Australian, so that's the advantage there, Mike. For the kickoff returns, punt Preston Fox, more quiet of a day than he had week 1 against, I already forget who West Virginia played, Robert Morris. 4 returns for 25 yards of an average. On the kickoff return for Pitt, it's been Kenny Johnson so far. 4 returns for a 41-yard average. If he keeps that up, he'll be the highest returner in college football for this year, but that ain't going to happen. Did have a 78-yard return against Duquesne week 1 that skews the stats, but he can do it. So, got to stop him on the kickoff returns, and I just hope that Ethan Head continues to boot the ball out of the end zone for more touchbacks. Don't even give him a chance. On the punt return, Preston Fox still keeping up a respectable average, 10.1 yards per game, 7 returns for 71 yards total with a long of 28. On the opposite side, you got 2 guys who have done their turns, but Des Reed's an all-purpose All-American for a reason. He's had 5 returns, 21-yard average. Kenny Johnson had 3 returns. This was kind of in mop-up duty for Des Reed week 1 against Duquesne, a 21-yard average. So let's talk about the 3 keys to victory, and I'll get you out on this. I think number 1, first and foremost, the defense has to set the tone. Feed off the crowd and get Pitt off the field with some 3-and-outs. 3-and-outs, 5-and-outs, however you want to do it. Take the playbook from 2023. Frustrate Holstein. Like I said this earlier, this is going to be a big crowd that he's going to face, stripe the stadium, loud. He's a gamer, though, so you got to bring it. Phil Dracovic, not a gamer. Maybe the worst quarterback Pitt's had in 25 years. He just looked completely lost, had no confidence, and West Virginia came up with those timely interceptions. So do the same thing to him. Maybe Holstein gets a bit too aggressive. He already has 2 picks on the year, and West Virginia has respectable members in the secondary this year compared to last year when West Virginia did not. Aiden Garnes, Dantes Fagan, Garnet Hollis Jr., gone. So what can these new guys do? I think this just has to be a defensive slugfest. I would go with the under if I was a betting man on this contest. That's the way West Virginia is going to win. I think kind of like the first team to 21 is going to win this game. So, number 2, offensively, we talked about the defense. I think you got to choose your spots wisely because multiple turnovers, maybe even just a single turnover, the way that you've been playing lately, could be devastating. You can't have the kind of mental lapses with not covering up the ball and fumbling like you had in week 1 against RMU, and you can't be letting your quarterback get killed in the pocket like what happened last week against Ohio. And that was the reason why I don't put that interception on Nico at all. He's trying to make a play. It's 3rd and 9 because of the false start on Cam Vaughn that moved it from a 3rd and 4 to a 3rd and 9. West Virginia's got to pick up a first down there. Punt really does nothing, so gets hit trying to make a play, wounded duck, interception. Got to have some big plays, and I think they have to come through the air because I just don't see West Virginia running on this Pitt defense. I think it was already going to be tough with Jaheim White. Now without him, this is not the week to beat Clay Ash. I saw something by Blue Gold Nation earlier on. It was like a graphic of Clay Ash and Rich Rodriguez's vote of confidence in him. Oh goodness gracious, no. I hope it's a combination of Sincere Bowers with the speed that he showed off in week 1 against RMU. If you're going to run to the outside, you got to have speed to be able to beat these linebackers to the sidelines, or try Ty Edwards as your power back. That's the whole freaking reason that he is a Mountaineer. You were expecting him really to be your power back, replacing C.J. Donaldson, or go to this Tyler Jacklich, who they brought from the JUCO ranks. Donaldson, as I said, ran on Pitt for 3 seasons. So if you can't beat them up the middle, the line's not getting a push, run them freaking over with your 225-pound running backs. Do it. Number 3, and this is kind of off the wall, but you got to have something like this, I feel like, in a contest that if you're going to beat the team that's favored in this contest in a rivalry game, there's got to be some sort of an element of surprise. Whether that's going for it more on 4th down, a fake on special teams, a trick play on offense, or, I don't know, something nuclear like using Rodney Gallagher at tailback like Dana Holgerson used Tavon Austin against Oklahoma in 2012. This Pitt team hasn't faced a Power 4 opponent yet. There are new faces for West Virginia, players, both sides of the ball, and it has been since 2010, so 15 years, when Rich Rodriguez was the head coach at Michigan and Narduzzi was the defensive coordinator at Michigan State, that they faced off. So his offense has to look different from then, and it's going to look different than just the team that played Pitt a year ago in 2024. It's to keep up the tempo. Don't have to do so much window dressing like Neil Brown did to try and slow the game down, but you're going to have to rely on your defense and offense, come up with some big plays when you need to. If you get short fields, capitalizing on them, whether by way of turnovers or in the return game, throw out the kitchen sink, y'all. This is a win at all costs kind of game. Whatever you need to do, this is it. This is kind of your Super Bowl. So, prediction, my head says Pitt wins. I've kind of felt that way all summer. I don't want to vote with my head here. I'm hopeful. I don't know why. Because, that there have been games where against Pitt, even last year, I felt rather confident in West Virginia winning that game on the road. I felt West Virginia was, not as big of an underdog as a 7-point spread in that to begin that 2022 season. Like, the times that I feel more confident, I'm just surprised by the outcome. And maybe that's just the way rivalry games go. So if Pitt comes in this overconfident, which I can't believe. I wouldn't know how they would, but, just not expecting the kind of effort from West Virginia that they receive, a little bit overwhelmed from what their expectations are, that this West Virginia can somehow pull out a 24-21 game. So I'm going to bet with my heart over my head. I know I'm 1-1 on predictions for this season now with the Ohio loss. Never thought that was a possible conclusion. Maybe this is a last-second walk-off by... his name already escaped me. Cade Hensley, from Coastal Carolina. Maybe he's the next Tyler Bittencourt, and we get some sort of walk-off like that. Wouldn't that be great, Mountaineer Nation? I would absolutely freaking love it. So let's say West Virginia, as I said, gets to be that first team that scores 21. Pitt comes back, and then West Virginia somehow kicks a field goal to win this game. That would be absolutely freaking beautiful going into that 4-year stretch of not having the Backyard Brawl. So need that, just like we needed the Black Diamond Trophy in 2021 and 22 against Virginia Tech. So want to have this game. Really want to have this one. So I'd love to know your thoughts. Good, bad, or indifferent. How you feeling? Are you feeling like me? Your head says Pitt wins this game, but your heart says, man, I can't bet against West Virginia at home. That's kind of where I'm at. I will be going to this game. Yeah, we're gonna. My dad and I are gonna test it out. We don't have tickets right now, so need to find some tickets available. Actually, you know what? Hold on. So, with my prediction, the West Virginia Swami says that West Virginia is gonna win this contest. So, if the Swami says so, I'm feeling confident about it, and I love it. Didn't have him for my prediction last week against Ohio, so that's probably why they lost. We need the luck of the freaking Swami. The Swami will wish it for the Mountaineers to become a victory. So, yeah, going to go test it out. So if you see me in the green, blue, silver lots, walking around, love to, say hi, stop and talk with you. Let me know your thoughts, good, bad, and different, how you feel. Leave your comments here on YouTube. And once again, if you like this video, please like it so more Mountaineer fans can see it before 3:30's kickoff on Saturday and, kind of get this analysis. I'll be back for you on Sunday to break it down, whether West Virginia wins or loses or ties. Nah, that can't happen. But we've had ties in this series. That's wild. And then, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week, and I have a lot of fun doing it. Hail West Virginia. Let's go and spot the ball, baby. I'll see you in Morgantown.